UNL graduates at different levels and upcoming UNL graduates are going to talk to you about that theme, expanding your future using education. So I'll just hopefully start with Sydney and kind of go early on.
Okay. Yeah, so I kind of already introduced myself, but Sydney here, senior in civil engineering at UNL.
I'm not sure I understand.
Last fall was my first year at UNL. Before that, I was at South Dakota School of Mines and Technology. It's an all-engineering school for those of you that aren't familiar with it. I don't know, it's kind of a different path, not exactly your straight from high school to college type of path. I am on the 5.5-year track, so it all happens eventually. I don't know, yeah, doing the civil engineering thing, looking to get my master's degree here next year, and I don't know, that's kind of my gig. So if you guys have any questions about anything like that, I'll do my best to answer them. I was put on this panel because I said something one time in passing to Chris, and so yeah, I don't know, that's what I got.
What'd you say?
I said I was giving a student a tour, I think this was when it happened. It was kind of a fleeting comment. And I said something about like when you have an engineering degree, regardless of what it is, you can do so many things with it. For a long time I thought I was going to go to law school after getting an engineering degree. You can go transportation, you can go DOT, work Department of Transportation, you can go private sector. What I want to do is crash reconstruction, so when there are car accidents, we go and find out what happened, or crash prevention too. I'm working right now up in Macy trying to get that nonsense figured out, how everyone has to walk across the the highway. Like that's not a safe situation, so we're going to try and intervene before it becomes something that you can reconstruct, right on? So and there's just so many options that you can do once you have a STEM degree in general. Spoken with the people from USD law school, and they would always come to School of Mines and say, we know you guys are smart. If you can get through engineering school, we know you guys are smart, and so don't worry about getting into law school after that. So it's just kind of one of those things that once you have it, you just quote SpongeBob, the world is your oyster, So it's just one of those things that it's very meaningful to have.
And I'm Rebekka Schlichting from the Iowa tribe in Kansas, and I went to Kickapoo Nation School for elementary, junior high, and high school. I went to a public school from kindergarten to 4th grade, and then from then on, I was in a tribal school. So it's very similar to Winnebago, I think, and Santee when I went up there and talked to some students there. It seemed very similar. So I graduated with 12 people in high school, and then I went to this huge university all of a sudden in this huge town, which I thought Lawrence, Kansas was a huge town at the time. Because I grew up on the reservation where I could go walk for miles and not see anybody and just sing my songs, to practice my powwow songs or whatever. And, give tobacco in the morning and, pray to all our relations. And all of a sudden I was in the city and I couldn't do any of that, and so I really felt culture shock. I had a big culture shock going from reservation to what do they call it? A majority non-native, I guess, because I went to the University of Kansas. So I was all of a sudden living in a dorm with 50 girls who also were native, and that I found that the ways of living on the reservation were very different than the ways that people in mainstream, I guess, live. And so it was interesting to be 18 and learning how to suddenly walk into World War I. I only had to really worry about one and going to school for the first part of my life. And then also I wasn't really academically prepared to go to the University of Kansas, so I had to take a lot of 001 classes to get caught up. And then I just felt, I remember sitting there my freshman year. It was my first day getting to college. My aunt dropped me off because she was my foster mom, because both my parents were at a mental hospital the first day I went to college. And so I was sitting there like, wow, I made it. I'm here at the University of Kansas, and I graduated with 12 people, and all those people didn't go to college. and here I am, the only person. And so I'm like, well, this is a lot of pressure. And there's a lot of factors thrown my way, but despite all of that, I made, some sort of magical pact with myself that worked and said, I'm gonna work twice as hard as everybody else around me just to prove that I can do this. Because too many times I saw people, Native people, like myself, saying, I can't do this, and I'm not good enough to be here, or I'm not smart enough. And that's exactly how I felt when I got to the University of Kansas. And I thought, I'm too stupid to be here, but I'm gonna give it my best shot anyway. And so I sat there, worked extra hard, and all my friends were out partying and everything our first year. I was sitting there studying and trying to get through, my first year of college. And so I really took that first semester to just be sober and be very focused on school, and it worked. And I got A's and B's. And I was cramming so much into my head at once that I thought, can my brain even take this? Because I was taking Latin on top of math. It was just that in itself, just really, two really hard classes. Anyway, so I just focused really hard and made myself sit there and put all my technology in a different room so that I wouldn't be able to access it really fast, Just took every little stupid advice that anybody ever gave me throughout my, college career or high school career, and just tried to use that. And because, a lot of times where elders would say you need to go out and go to college and come back and help your people because we need you, we need that to happen. And, growing up on the reservation, I saw a lot of alcoholism, I saw a lot of broken dreams, broken homes, and I didn't want that for myself anymore. I didn't want that for my family. My future family. So I took it serious and I made it through, and I made it through in 4 years. And I learned throughout those 4 years that hardly anybody, not Native or not Native, gets through college in 4 years. It's really, really hard to do. So don't feel bad if you have to go for 7 years or whatever it is to get through. Because it takes everybody different amounts of time. But it is possible to go from nothing to a 4-year degree, and then from that, it led me to get my master's degree here in Nebraska for free. And so I have like $45,000 in debt, but it's because I bought a car for myself, and then I bought all this furniture for my family, and I took my friends out to eat, and I bought my friends who were having babies instead of going to school, I buy them clothes and diapers and stuff like that, And so it was like, instead of starting from nothing, I was starting from negative, is what I like to think. And so I just took out a lot of loans. And now I work in a nonprofit for Native people and Native film. And in 10 years, all of my loans will be forgiven. And I don't have to worry about that anymore. And right now, it's just like paying an extra bill. It's like $200 a month for my loans. But in 10 years, I have to say, I don't have any regrets. Because then I got my free master's degree here in Nebraska, which is totally possible for all of you. So anyway, yeah, that's my big story.
Good story. Okay, when I get asked that question, because I'm old now, so I gotta start going back in time. I always think back to, I grew up in, I got to grow up on a farm in Winnebago, and it's now gone, because unfortunately I lost my dad a few years ago, 9 years ago now. And I don't care how old you are, you will always miss your parent, however old you are, when they pass on. And it's now where Educare is in Winnebago. If you know where that is in Winnebago now, that's where I grew up, literally. So about where third base is where my bedroom was, would have been, I guess, where the softball field is. And I used to sit there and I used to daydream about getting off the res, about getting, because I had some hard times, but it happens in our families. And I started achieving. I started out, I was labeled as having reading and math disabilities, and then I became gifted all of a sudden, and I started achieving in school. So I knew school, and I was a good athlete, good musician too. I knew that would be my ticket out, and I did make it out. Came to college, I liked college, but my experience growing up in a interracial family, blended, what we call now today a blended family, when you have step or half siblings, so to speak. I don't like to use those terms, but this was back in the 80s, it was a different time. Very over everything. what it taught me was to get along, because I'm Northern Cheyenne. I just grew up with the Winnebagos and Omahas. And I learned how to get along with people at a very young age. And I appreciated those diplomacy skills. So when I came to the urban setting, I made fast friends with other groups and other races. And that is a skill that I would definitely encourage others to get familiar with quickly, because they helped me. And when I look back, I do not regret any of those decisions. And when I got to college, I started taking different classes, didn't do so well in some classes, and I discovered I could turn my life experiences into a career, and I did. I fast forwarded, and that's what I have now. So I'm blessed to be a doctor, and I'm not trying to brag, excuse me if I sound arrogant from my elders, but I'm actually the first woman from my tribe to ever get a PhD from this institution. And I say that because that was a long, lonely road, but it's nothing compared to what our ancestors paid for us in the past. One of my ancestral grandfathers would say that the times have changed. We got to invest in education now, and I did. I took that to heart. And it's, again, nothing compared to what others have paid the price. I say all that to tell you that, yes, we've gone through hard times, but I devoted it to what I do now. It's called non-cognitive development, or that resiliency building among people, not just for our people, but for all students, all groups, all community building as well. Because these are tough times that we're in. And so I appreciate Rebekka and Sydney telling you that no matter how long it takes, we can get through it. We can do it. I had one of my good friends, it took him quite a while, but he got that degree done. So whatever your dreams are, you can do it. Back to those times you were daydreaming, I guess. That's what I used to do. I like that. You guys took me back in time. I'm going to have to write that down, because I am getting old now. I'm going to forget that. I'm warning you. You'll appreciate those memories. But it is a pleasure to be here tonight, and I appreciate sharing that story with you. So, do you have the next questions, Gabe?
Stay in school. No. We used to have a lot of speakers come, motivational speakers, to our school because we were a native school. And so they would say things like, put a midget on your shoulder, or what does that say? Be a midget on somebody's shoulder? I can't remember.
I don't know if I know that one.
But if I kept talking, it would come through. Just to really think about what your elders went through, like Colette said, our ancestors went through a lot. And they always kept us in mind. They're always thinking about future generations. And so when my elders would tell me that, I would really take that to heart and think, I need to really think about my future generations and how I'm going to provide a life for them. And then when I started going to school and my friends were back home, having kids and everything, I just thought, well, this is more motivation for me to get through school, to show them that they can still go back and still get this done. And some of my friends have gone back to school now, and they're in community college with their kids. And I'm so proud of them. And they tell me that all the time. It's really nice that you showed us that it's possible, because you were the only Indian from around here that went to this big college and stuck with that. But that, and then, staying close to your community, because when you leave your community to go to a big 4-year institution, there's a lot of, you've heard like spiders in buckets and crabs in buckets, where one tries to crawl out and then the rest of them pull them back down. Well, I experienced this when I went back home for powwows and things. People would say, oh, you think you're better than me now because you got an education, or because you're going to school, or you're just an apple now, or you're just a urban native now, which I like that you said that you get to call yourself that. Because back home, people are like, oh, those are me. But it is a really fine life now. But it was kind of hard to experience that for a while. But I just kept listening to what other people, the positives. Because there's a lot of positive things that people would say too, like, keep going, and you're showing me what can be done. Things like that. So even though my cool friends back home were trying to make fun of me, I just thought, well, I'm going to do something with my life, and I'm going to help Native people, and that's my main goal in life. And then I was able to make it through. But I really think that the stigma, just because you don't go to college, we need to really get rid of that in our society, because a lot of people put down people who don't go to school. And so that's why we have this idea like, oh, you went to school, so you think you're so much better than us now. But just to tell people, it's okay to go to school, it's a good thing, and to not have, not going to school be a bad thing. It doesn't have to be good and bad. Everybody is going to have their own path, whatever way that they have, in life. But anyway, that's just some advice. Do you guys have advice?
I kind of, I was thinking about that. It's actually come later. I started thinking about, like I said, I grew up in Northern Cheyenne. My older sister is Winnebago. That's how we got there. Which, my dad was born and raised there. But I started thinking about that, like talking to Creator. I was like, why did that happen to me? Because it gets lonely when you don't have cousins, especially when you already know. We already know. You don't have people to back you up in those fights or whatever you're getting called out. I was being nice when I said I learned to be a diplomat right away growing up. You know what I'm saying. You keep reading between the lines. I learned how to be a warrior woman right away growing up. But now that I'm older, I started thinking about, I was like, Creator, why did that happen to me? Why didn't I go up in Langley or Busby or, because I can't go back there either. Because I grew up off reservation. I'm an outlander there, And I started thinking about it, and I was like, well, Cheyennes are indigenous to Nebraska. We are an indigenous tribe to this land. And technically, Dolomite did take my ancestral grandfather did take a Pawnee wife, and that's what I come from. I come from that line in the Cheyenne. And I said, well, maybe it is to give some hope or some resurgence to those of us that live in the city now. So I've really taken that strength of our people to stand alone oftentimes for others in the city. I've learned to put that in perspective and to encourage the youth that you can do whatever you want to do, the younger ones. You can go wherever you want to go, and we should be able to go wherever we want to go as Native people. This is our land. This is our home. And even though those borders are up now, we can be where we want to be. We can go to college where we want to be. So that's kind of how I started working through that later. But it took a while. It took a long time to work through that, but that's the beauty of the healing process too. So I'm a little older now, so I'm going to sound a little more probably different and more mature in a different way, when you go through life and pain. But that's sort of how I got through getting over when people call you out or, put you down for being a certain way or however. I might still think it, Rebekka, but I don't say it anymore.
It's nice I still don't know what to do. So yeah, like I say, up until probably last month, I was going to go to law school. Things move fast in my world. Let's see. All through high school, I was never going to go to school of mine because it was in my hometown. I was never going to be that person that never left. And I was going to be an architect or something. For a while, I was going to be a doctor. Like I said, life moves fast. And then, I ended up going to school of mine. Had to be some kind of engineer. Didn't really know what a civil engineer did, but it's kind of like an architect, right? So that's what I did. Completely fake news. Don't do that. They're very different. But yeah, so I did the civil engineering thing, and somehow got hooked up doing the crash reconstruction thing. It was complete dumb luck, accident. I play hockey. I played all through high school, and one of my teammates' dad owned a reconstruction company, and so one of those summer job things that just kind of falls in your lap. So yeah, one of those things, networking, dumb luck, things like that, never miss an opportunity like that. Like, just especially the people in this room, they're great contacts. You don't know where you're going to be in a few years, where they're going to be in a few years, if you keep in touch and, eventually you need something, sorry, we're going on a tangent now. This job, I moved here, didn't know anyone in Lincoln, and got an email for an after-school program that needed mentors, this roads, rails, and race cars thing. Never heard of it in my life. Apply, get an interview, and I'm talking to the guy for the interview, and I have on my resume that I'm in ACES, American Indian Science and Engineering Association, and he's like, oh, you're Native American? I'm like, yeah. I'm from South Dakota, enrolled member of Dakota Sioux. He's like, oh, I'm from Yankton Sioux. I'm like, oh, nice to meet you. Yeah, I see a boy over there. You know what I mean? It's just like those weird connections like that, it's fucking gods. And I wouldn't have done any of the things had that interview and that just kind of dumb luck thing happen. It's just kind of taking the opportunities that are given to you. You know what I mean? Taking advantage of them and not letting them slip away, not being like, I don't know, something else will come along. You know what I mean? Trying to just take advantage of those, and I don't know. I feel like we went on a lot of tangents. I hope it all came together somewhere.
Oh yeah. So in school, my school is really good at journalism. For some reason, we had this really one passionate teacher. I mean, there was a lot of good teachers, but one passionate one that taught us journalism, and I just happened to be pretty good at it because she was a really good teacher. So I really wanted to be a lawyer because a lot of my elders said, if you want to do something in Indian country, you have to go be a lawyer, and you have to come back and help your people. So I had in my head, okay, I'm going to go make tons of money and travel the world and be a lawyer and help my people, right? So then I went to school. And in college, I took a political science course, and I found out that I absolutely hate politics, which is still the case, and I do not identify as Republican or Democrat, and I just don't like it. But although I did like reporting on it because I love learning about both sides and what both sides think, because I think people are so separated, but there are actually a lot of things that overlap and ideas that overlap. And so I'm really interested in helping people to understand each other. And so when I got to KU, one of the first things somebody asked me was, do you live in a teepee? Or do you have power at home? And I'm like, yeah, I grew up in a house and we've always had DirecTV. And not in a teepee either. And sometimes there's a few times where I like to mess with people and say, oh yeah, 2-story, what do you know? But there were a few times where people asked really dumb questions like that. So then it became my mission to educate people about natives, because I didn't realize how ignorant people were in the world about native people. So, and that just creates a whole lot of issues where there's not compassion or understanding for us, and then you can't move anywhere within the laws because people just simply can't understand the way we live, or the way that our society works. So I thought journalism must be my calling. So I just went into journalism after that. And now I'm not even in journalism. I went to grad school for journalism because of my job that I have now. So I was an intern at the Lawrence Journal World. And when I was there, I was reporting on stories about like poor people who would put on these extravagant weddings for other poor people, or things that I just didn't really care about. And I started asking questions like, why is the local sports for the high school on the front page, but high school never gets on the front page unless it's about rape or theft or something negative that happens at high school? And I started asking these questions in the newsroom, and they would give me the runaround, like, go ask this person or whatever. Eventually I found that they just simply did not understand how to talk to people at high school because it's a totally different culture. We live in a totally different society. So I took it upon myself to start reporting about Native stories there, and got I Don't Know More front page story, and was just sitting there crying like, I can't believe I'm putting something positive about Natives in this paper that's never had anything positive in years. And so then it really became my passion when I was able to do that. and thought, okay, now I want to go work for the Rolling Stones because I love rock music and concerts. And I just wanted to go hang out with rock stars, which had nothing to do with helping my people, so that dream didn't last too long. Also, I would have to move to New York or something silly, so I didn't want to do all that. So there was a slight tangent, but then I got back on track. And when I graduated, right before I graduated, I had this internship that was backpack reporting for Vision Maker Media. And they do, ultimately, documentaries that go to PBS about natives made by Native people. And so I had this summer internship, and I said, I'd love to come. I would love this internship. It's everything I want. I get to report on the people, and I get to really get all of those multimedia skills, too. And I said, but I simply can't afford it. I have to pay my rent here in Lawrence, Kansas, during the summer. And they said, well, we'll send out an email and we'll see if we can find somebody that would house you. And then sure enough, they found my long lost cousin, which is crazy, who was adopted out of my family when she was a baby. And now she's in her 60s, Rita McClure. And she's in her 60s and she has 4 grandkids that are my age. And so she responds back to this mass email that went out and said, hey, I think that's my cousin. And then sure enough, it was my long lost cousin. So I came to Nebraska, lived with her for free. She fed me the whole summer, and then I had this great internship. And then when I was here, I met Judy Goshkabosh with the Indian Commission and Joe Strita, who works at the university in the journalism department. So they said, you need to come to Nebraska to get your master's for free because we do native reporting stories. And I said, okay, why do I need a master's in journalism? But at the same time, because honestly, there's no reason for you to get a master's in journalism. There's absolutely no reason. It's just another degree to have. And it's kind of cool to say that you have a master's and then not have a job. But it was honestly a really awesome thing for me to do because that led to teaching. So I taught for a year when I graduated with my master's. I taught a college class, and we helped gather evidence that ultimately helped to get White Clay shut down and right off the Pine Ridge Reservation. And so we did this class report called Wounds of White Clay. And so we won these big awards and got to travel to get these awards and meet all these people, and then we got global coverage on what our class did. So it was a huge thing, and then I thought, okay, I need to leave on a high note or something, because that was really awesome, but I didn't want to just be a professor. I wanted to go get more experience. So then, I don't know, Shirley just called me and was like, don't look away. She just called me out of nowhere, my boss, and said, hey, we need a new assistant director. So I applied, I got it, and I've been in this job for over a year. And I, because of education, have gone to multiple countries, Africa, and I've got to ride horses through the rainforest in Costa Rica to Leku Indians, and they treated me like family because I'm native here, and it was really cool. And I've gotten to do all of these cool things, London and China and Sri Lanka, all of those things because of college. All of those things, for some reason or another, education really, if you want to travel and you want to do things, like I just got back from Hollywood last week, and this week I go to Denver, and next week I go to Toronto, and I do all these things because I went to college. And it's the best thing I could have ever done. I would just be sitting at home, probably at the casino, smelling like nasty cigarettes. So, but yeah, it's the best thing you can do. So, and now I'm in film, and I never wanted to be a filmmaker. I just wanted to be a journalist. But documentary is very similar. So yeah, and I'm only 26, so who knows what's next.
I've been thinking about that question. Yes and no. Yes and no. I would say originally I wanted to be a teacher until I did my first practicum, and that's how you do those, because then you figure out the nuts and insane, and then I was like, no, I don't. So then I went the sociology research route, and then I defected back from liberal arts and got my master's in education, curriculum, instruction, and eventually my PhD. So yes and no. I'm doing what I wanted to do, but no, I had my fear in my undergrad of facing that on, about being a teacher. Ironically, when I first wanted to be a teacher, I didn't want to deal with parents. That's what turned me away in the practicum, was how sort of entitled, I could see that entitlement factor and the glass ceiling. I don't know why Creator gave me that vision right away, so, because I was very young to see that. That backfired on me because then the millennial generation is nothing but entitlement and, you know, the helicopter, what we call the helicopter parents. So I'm making a joke, right? You're supposed to laugh at that. Thank you for that first one. But all jokes aside, even though I did run from that, I'm being very serious right now that no matter what, Creator put me right back into education, and I have devoted my life back to it. Native education, multicultural education, and then obviously what I've been saying, the non-cognitive. And it's been a good ride. I can't complain. I am a doctor, so I really want to make sure that that's very clear. I had a lot of struggle. I faced the adversity, but at the end of the day, it's been a beautiful ride. I will always tell people that, no matter what. I will go to the grave hoping that people will recognize that. I tease my students. They better come to my celebration of life or whatever they do, and I want a roast. For all, as tough as I have been on my students, I just want them to roast me for that, because I am tough on them. Miss Phyllis was alluding to her grandmothers. I grew up with those tough Cheyenne. Remember, my mother was the only one around, so I couldn't verify what she was saying. So I had to believe her and follow her. And so I grew up being told, you have to comb your hair and look your best every single day. And I passed that on to my students. And yes, I paid the price for that. I've actually gotten in trouble for that, but I don't care. I'm going to continue to do it because I think those are important teachings to pass, to not just our Native students, but all students. So when I die, I tell my students, make sure you come back and you make fun of me and tell those jokes because you don't make what I did. So you send me off in a good way because it's been a good ride. And so that's how I would answer your question. Yes,
That's a really broad question. Like, do you believe in ghosts?
Our ghosts were.
Well, I like to read self-help books, things like that. So there's this book called The Secret. I don't know if I would fight for this though, but the idea where if you really, really believe in something, you can manifest it and then make it happen in your life. I really believe that because I remember, being on the reservation, being so bored and just thinking, man, I just really want a life where I can do things and stop being so bored all the time. And, I just manifested it because I really believed it. And sometimes things that I want in life, I really think, I want this. And then I go and I win bingo or something. So I think that's something. But right now I'm really focusing on other beliefs. I'm really focusing on missing and murdered Indigenous women. And the white claims of that, because they're very closely related, because there's a woman named Sherry Woundedfoot who was beat to death behind one of these buildings in White Clay. And justice has still not been brought to her murder. So I'm trying to help work with some senators here in Nebraska to make something happen, and they listen to me, and it's crazy because they'll actually do things. And I'm just like, oh, this is a young 26-year-old, and you think I have some good advice for you. I don't know, so just believing that you have a voice and that people will listen to you, or manifesting that stuff in your life, it's worth fighting for.
So I'm taking a class right now. I'm taking a little break from the engineering, getting some electives out of the way, doing poli-sci 231. It's like local government or something. And we were talking about education and talking about how it's paid for amongst government, kind of the stuff that way, and talking about rural areas and whether or not they should get schools because does it make sense that an area that's only, one room schoolhouse and it's getting paid for by taxpayer dollars versus they could just drive 40 miles and go to a bigger school, and they can make all the rural areas go to one school. And so, I'm in a class, and from my, looking around, I don't think there are any other natives in the class. And so I look up this story from, it's South Dakota. I want to say Rosebud. Anyway, there is no school. There's no high school. So after 8th grade, you just don't go to school. And so there's a church out in Connecticut that's paying. They're doing scholarships to send these kids to a different school, so that some of the kids past 8th grade can go to school. And so I raised my hand and kind of shared that with the class. I'm like, hey, I'm reading this article here. I took me a minute to find it. Here's a quote from an 8th grade girl saying, I'm really excited that I get to go to high school because that's not something I ever thought I would get to do. And just kind of like, is anyone in this class familiar with this? Is anyone in this class familiar with the issues in Indian country? And just a bunch of nods. Like, one of them works for like a state senator. They're very, very educated on, because they're all poli-sci majors. They're very educated on, what's going on in Nebraska, but they have no idea what's going on in Indian country, whether it's Nebraska or South Dakota. So I guess just kind of being less invisible. I guess getting it out there that we're here and there are still issues that are not resolved. And we kind of talked about this in line about how I had to go to college to find out what our history is actually like. It's not taught in public school of what really happened. I remember confronting my 6th grade teacher because I thought I was all big and bad because I found out Columbus was not who he was let out to be. I'm like, why did they tell us that? And she didn't have an answer for me. You know what I mean? Just stuff like that. Just kind of keeping it out there about what's really going on and not just kind of pulling the wool over type of deal.
Oh. 2 things come to mind.
Can I interrupt just a minute? It's not Rosebud that doesn't have a high school.
What is it? I cannot remember.
It's not Rosebud. I was born there. I grew up there.
County.
It's not Town County. There's St. Francis Mission High School. There's Town County High School.
I know, and it's killing me. I cannot think of what it is.
Yeah, that's not Rosebud.
Is it Red Cloud then?
No, that's Pine
That
Ridge.
is a high school.
No.
Yeah, there's one right down there in South Dakota, and I cannot think of it for the life of me. That's why I had to look it up when I was in class because I couldn't remember what area it was that didn't have it.
So 2 quick things come to, the first one, speaking of inline, I'm glad you alluded to that. We had a little inline conversation. Wherein professionally, I believe that Native students, Indigenous students need Indigenous teachers. That's my very firm, unpopular stance right now. And I say unpopular because that's not very popular amongst all my colleagues. I'm not saying non-Natives can't educate our students, but it's important that they have Indigenous teachers and students. And all students need Indigenous teachers and Native teachers as well. It's good. But what really I'm passionate about, because of my own children and my own family, is that children should have the right and the freedom and they should be able to choose their identity. That's my passion point. That will be my gears going with people. Because I was not allowed and afforded that choice growing up. And I know how traumatic that is to somebody. You don't understand when people are calling you names or pejoratives, or you don't understand it. You can't as a little kid. And you're going through other forms of trauma. So that's what I'm a big advocate about. A very big advocate, not just to people's chagrin, but I will definitely go toe to toe with people on that one. Because they should be able to come into their own identity of who they are without being told or to choose. You have to choose who you are. Good question. Controversial, but good question.
I guess there were a lot of moments, and I kind of mentioned those moments, like to people asking me if I was in teepee or being in a class of 400 people, and then somebody asking, "What's the Native perspective on this?" or sitting there crying because I finally got a Native story that's positive on the front page. But one early on moment, I guess, for my college career was just remembering Nemepikwa. She was my Kickapoo language teacher when I was a kid. And I'll never forget Nemepikwa. She was so cool. And she always told me, no matter where you are, you're a Native woman, keep your head up. And you know, that really stuck with me. For some reason, I don't know, I was walking down Jayhawk Boulevard thinking, like, I can't believe I'm here right now. I can't believe it. Like, I'm not smart enough to be here. This is crazy. And then her voice just came to me and said, keep your head up. Be proud of who you are. And so I just put my chin up, you know, and I thought, I made it. So that's mine. Yeah. It's a good thing for Native people to remember because we're often taught to be humble and quiet, and a lot of Native people are very shy, but we are here, you know, we have to take ownership of that and let it be known that you're here, you're a force, and when you use that power from your ancestors, you are an unstoppable force.
Yeah, I'm not sure if mine's profound, but you know, anything's hard. And so sometimes there are those days where you're like, I'm over it, I'm done, I'm gonna do something else, I don't know what to do something else. You know, and then I think of the people, you know, like I had this advisor at School of Mines, Dr. Kirk, he was Kashbit, his extended family in Lakota. And so we had a program at School of Mines, and so all the natives could be a part of this, and so we could all help each other. And we'd have like an extra advisor that would meet with us monthly, and another one that would meet with us weekly, kind of keep us on track and make sure, you know, how are you doing in this class, how are you doing in that class. You know, we have, you know, tutors for all our core classes to get you through all the calcs and DIFEQ, and just, you know, all those classes that are kind of can be hurdles. Anyway, so Carter, Dr. Kirk, whenever you meet with him, you know, talk about your progress, you know, before you leave, you look in at you and say, Cindy, I'm really proud of you. And so the thought of having to tell Carter that I was going to quit or that I couldn't do it, that was motivation enough to be like, nope, I got this. Like, just hang on. You know, so just like having, you know, doesn't matter how many people you have in your corner, but just having someone that like you feel accountable to, and you know, the thought and the shame of being like, I can't do this, you know, and like pushing it through.
Gosh, Dr. Cornelia says me, and I do this for a living. Narrative is my specialty in education, actually, in research, and actually in indigenous methods too. That's my specialty, and I'm sitting here stumped because two things came to mind, and one, I think I'm at a place where I wouldn't get emotional sharing this with all of you, but it is personal. When my father passed away, he was my rock. He taught me everything about me. I'm very much like my father. I know Virgos. We're very open. So nobody likes us because we're Virgos. We're single for the rest of our lives. One and done. Types, that's it. But after he died, and I'll probably have to think and reflect and probably write about that question. I really think about that. His real good friend, my dad died of a brain tumor, actually the same type that would have killed like Senator Kennedy or John McCain that just passed away. Senator McCain, astrocytomas tumor. So they're either you can get them or you can't. They grow out like a star out of your brain. So he did go quickly, which is good because he's too agile, too smart. He has to be active. So I'm glad he passed away quickly. And according to a lot of our traditional beliefs, that's when I had my last son, and I actually was going home on a recruiting trip up to Sioux City to their Title Indian Ed program, to their fair, and I was going to tell him that morning, and that's when he collapsed. And I had to call the EMTs to get him. That started the process. And you know how we believe when one goes and one comes in, and so that's a real it's still hard for me to struggle with. But when he passed, his good friend, Mr. Bavra from Pender, he said, make sure you finish your doctorate. That was probably that moment, if I were to give anything credit for that. However, Dr. Cornelius, I did not listen to his advice because I wasn't ready to go through my morning. It took me a long time to face that. I started avoiding my morning. Got married, just did everything to avoid that. So then later on, I had a real good friend, Omaha elder, tell me I was always real good brain-wise, cognitive-wise, smart, intelligent, smart, but it was the heart. She says you have to walk through the feelings. And when I did that, when I started going through the morning, that's when I finally finished. So when I lined up basically the mind and the heart and the soul, and I actually wrote about that in my dissertation. So that would be the way I would answer your question. It became in two different parts for me. So you have to be honest with yourself, in other words, when you're avoiding all that, when you're in denial, when you're avoiding your life. So, well, that was a good question. Jeez. Ooh, I bet his Dr. Wilson just can't stand it. I don't want him on their committees, no way.